My name is Joe Peroni, and this is the Rise Above Project. And today I want to look at 5 complaints that I have compiled from men and women that I hear about all the time when I'm doing therapy with people. And it causes a lot of anger, it causes a lot of bitterness, it causes a lot of triggering, if we want to use that word. And I'm of the position that if people had more awareness and they looked at both sides of the situation, that it wouldn't trigger them at all. They would just understand that it's the normal progression of life. So let's take a look at some of these, actually 5 of them. The first one, let's look at a man's complaint. What I hear about now, especially from a lot of younger men, they say women are overvaluing their worth because of social media and things like OnlyFans. Now, I've never used OnlyFans, but I guess women do things on OnlyFans, probably, I don't know, maybe even pornographic things, and they get paid, right? And so women are becoming more narcissistic. And this is probably true, right? When you see social media and you're working for likes and subscribers and things like this, and it's kind of interesting. I go to the gym 6 days a week. And even when I go there at 5 o'clock in the morning, there's already women setting up cameras. And it's really odd. I had this woman there about maybe 2 weeks ago. And I'm trying to lift a 110-pound dumbbell, which you might understand, like the weights start from like 5 pounds all the way up. And so if you're near the 110-pound dumbbells, you're at the very end of the rack. Well, the lighting was just a little bit better over there, I guess. So a girl sets up her camera, and so she can bring over the 5-pound dumbbells to sit there and do slow motion for her fans. And I wasn't going to move. I'm lifting over 100 pounds with one arm. And she's not in the area. She should be in the area where you lift 5 pounds, but the lighting was not perfect for her thing, for her fans, and so she's got to sit there and bother me. So I do feel for some of these younger men that, you know, they look at these women and they go, who are you? Like what's going on here? You think the world revolves around you. But let's be honest. Let's look at both sides. It kind of does revolve around a lot of those women. Why? Because I know a woman that said that she made $100,000 off of 1 hour with her OnlyFans thing. Or I guess she did some kind of Zoom meeting with some guy. So if young men or older men are going to be that stupid to part with their money, hand over their money just to see or to talk to a girl on a screen or even in person, you got to be crazy. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, and so a man complaining on an individual basis, I could see that. But overall, men in general, what they're doing is they're creating a need for women to do this. And there are going to be certain women who fulfill that need. It's basic capitalism. So you have to ask yourself, well, why wouldn't a girl do that? Well, some are going to do it. And the reason why they're going to do it is because men have no problem being jerks and spending their money for women just to exist, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. I think it was Jean-Paul Sartre that said, like, if you want to know how good of a person you are, look at all your values and what you do in the businesses that you go to in your life, and figure out if every other human being on earth did the same thing you did, what kind of a world would it be? And when I look at this, I would say, well, first of all, OnlyFans wouldn't exist. Instagram wouldn't exist. And I do understand the irony of me doing a YouTube show. I understand that. But there's no way that I'm putting all these likes and following girls because they know how to wear a bikini. I just think that is amazingly ridiculous. Yeah, I even know therapists, women therapists, who on the side do OnlyFans, and they'll make more money than I'll ever make. And I have no need to be angry at that because it's the idiot guys who spend their money doing this. So again, it's both sides are equally contributing, if you want to call it a problem. I don't know if it's a problem because it seems to be that for every person on the left, there's a person on the right. And it just makes things go around. Second complaint, a man's complaint. They say women only want tall men. Well, on average, that's true. Women do tend to prefer a man who's taller. However, if you just look at it with some awareness, we can see that the average man is about 5'9", the average woman is about 5'4". And so just by not even doing anything, you're going to see the average man with an average woman, the man's going to be taller. That's just percentages. That's not somebody looking for that. That's just the way it works because of biology. Now, on the other side to that, it's not just women preferring taller men. It's men preferring shorter women. So then why do we want to put it on women to say, oh, they're bad people because they just want men who are tall and I can't do anything about my height and therefore women are very bad people? No, because on the other side of that, men prefer shorter women. And to illustrate this point, again, when I'm at the gym, I see this woman come in sometimes. And by any objective standard, you would say that she's attractive, whether we're talking facially or her body. And it turns out she's a professional athlete. But she's also a volleyball player, so she's about 6'5". So if she's wearing heels, she's probably about 6'8". So you can be a 6'2" man, and you're still going to be 6 inches shorter than her. So if you're a man, would you still date her? If you're 5'9" and you're going out with a woman who's about a foot taller than you, would you do that? And most men are going to say no. Now, obviously, I haven't talked to this woman. I didn't go through her background. I didn't ask her anything. But I would imagine if I did, you would find that it's very difficult for a professional athlete woman who's 6'5" to find a man. And what you're going to hear over and over again is that the man is going to feel very intimidated by a woman who's 6'5". So once again, put down the triggering, put down the anger, put down the bitterness, and just look at it with some objectivity and some awareness to see that typically, yes, a man prefers a shorter woman, and a woman who's shorter prefers a taller man. There's no issue here. There's nothing here to complain about, and there's nothing to gain any type of anxiety and lose years of your life because of anger. It doesn't make any sense to worry about this kind of stuff. Let's look at another men's complaint. Women only like guys with money. Okay, now, obviously there's some truth to that, right? Because with money comes a level of safety and security, at least on some level. And on some level, it could also be said that a man who has more money probably maybe has more ambition, and they might have a little bit more intelligence, maybe. We live in the United States, right? A lot of people get gifted things and whatever. We can look at Elon Musk, for example. Doesn't seem to be the most emotionally intelligent human being ever. You know, he thinks empathy is an actual vice. So is he smart? I maybe to some level, to some degree, but is he smart when he's dealing with human beings? Absolutely not, but he's just one example. So there is some correlation to intelligence and ambition to money, but not really. It's not that heavy of a correlation. But I can see why women would prefer a guy who looks like they can handle a little bit more safety and security for them. That makes sense. However, what's the other side to that? Because men are intimidated by successful women, and if the woman makes more money than them, it's definitely a more difficult thing. So like if a man is looking to be in a long-term relationship with a woman, and she's a successful lawyer, a successful doctor, maybe she has a degree of fame, for example, typically it's going to be very hard for that relationship to continue. So again, what are we complaining about here? So yes, we can say that women prefer men that have more money. However, a man goes into a relationship trying to be the one who's the breadwinner, trying to be the one who has more money, because he's much more comfortable with a woman who makes a lot less money than he does. And so again, is this a complaint? It should not be a complaint. You shouldn't lose any sleep over it. You should not have any increase in anxiety, because both sides are equally contributing to this situation. I wouldn't call it a problem. So let's look at a woman's complaint. Men like younger women. I hear this a lot. Women tend to get very angry. They get bitter, just like men do about the other situation that I talked about. Is this true? Well, by percentage, it is kind of true, although the evidence clearly indicates that the best relationships are with people that are within the same age. So while that is true, it is true that men do look at younger women. Now, let's look at the other side to that. It can also equally be said that women prefer older men. So once again, there should be no complaints here because it's equal on both sides. When you see an older man with a younger woman, it's not, I mean, unless she's a prostitute and he's paying her, there's two people saying yes to this relationship. He's not forcing her. So yes, the man is with a younger woman, but yes, women prefer older men. And we could dig a little bit deeper into here because the correlation isn't always age. Women prefer guys who are more mature. And yes, there's a correlation between maturity and age. Not always. There's plenty of older guys that never learn a thing and, just continue to go down the road of being emotionally immature. I get that. But again, when a woman looks at an older man, there's an expectation that he's going to be more mature. And so she gravitates towards an older guy. But equally said, on the man's side, he's not trying to look at a woman's birth certificate and say, yes, she's the age I want. That's not typically what happens. There are other qualities that go along with it. Typically, what a man is interested in, he is very attracted to a woman's youthful exuberance and a minimal amount of anger and bitterness. Now, again, does this mean that all women are angry? No. But what I'm saying is, over time, if people are not skillful with their life and they tend not to be grateful and aim and look at the good things that they have in their life, what happens is that people tend to be angry and more bitter. And so all of us, men and women in certain ways, do prefer youth over someone who's older because of those reasons. Moving on, another woman's complaint that men only like model types, right? They have to have a certain body type, they have to be a certain amount of attractiveness. And yeah, part of that's true, right? Like, we're attracted, by definition, we're attracted to what's attractive, right? That makes sense. But again, what you're going to see is, and what triggers this response from a lot of women, is that you'll see a very average to below average looking man with a much, let's say, above average woman. And they're like, oh, how does that happen? I can't believe it. Like, the man is only going to go for that pretty woman over there. But again, there's two sides contributing here. Because if you look at what women like, yes, if a woman wants to read a Harlequin romance, she wants to hear about a guy who's amazingly good looking. If she wants to watch a movie, she wants to see a guy who looks great. If she's going to have a one-night stand, she may consider that with a type of guy who looks a certain way. All that's true. However, it's been shown over and over again, plenty of empirical evidence will tell us that when a woman wants a long-term relationship, she wants a guy who has a dad bod, who looks about average or less than average. And why is that? It's because if you're a good-looking guy and you know that all the women look at this guy and they want to talk to him, all of a sudden she feels that there's a million different ways and how and more opportunities to cheat and everything else. And her self-esteem goes down because she doesn't like the fact that he is attractive. She also feels like if he's eating good and looking good, it puts more pressure on her. So women tend to feel prettier when they're with an ugly guy. And so again, is it true that men prefer model types? Yes. But if we look at percentages, not everybody's a model. And most men are dating very average to below average people. That's just the way it is. Not very many people are model types. And again, women prefer in long-term relationships. They want the guy who almost has no opportunities to be looked at. And they don't want a guy who they call as quote unquote a looker, where he walks into I don't know, a restaurant and all the girls are looking him down. They don't like that unless they have a degree of self-esteem. But then again, the amount of people who have a high self-esteem, it lowers the chances because there's not that many people with a good self-esteem that can handle that. So let me sum up. I gave you 5 different complaints. I almost never get comments on my shows, and that's okay. If nobody wants to listen or comment, that's fine. But maybe somebody else out there can come up with some other complaints that could help some people. Because I really do believe, and from what I've showed you today, is that you can take a lot of these complaints that I hear from people all the time that really hurt people, and I don't want to say ruin their lives, but they definitely make them triggered, they make them angry, they make them make bad decisions in their life based on this stuff. It makes them bitter to a point where they have difficulty in relationships or finding relationships. And I really believe that if you have some awareness and you look at it objectively, you will see that both sides contribute equally to these situations. And you can be that much more happier in your life if you understand that. Hopefully this has been beneficial to you in some way. My name is Joe Peroni. This is the Rise Above Project. Please subscribe and tell a friend. Thank you.